Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about an artist who builds monuments, but not out of stone or bronze. Nope, he builds them out of emptiness itself.
So let's just start with this question. How do you build a monument to something that has vanished forever? I mean, really think about that. How do you give physical form to a memory, to a loss, to, well, an absence? It's a huge, huge challenge for any artist.
Well, for one artist, the answer didn't come from some grand studio or academic lecture. It actually started with something super simple, a hole in the sand.
All right, so to really get who Michael Ullman is, we have to go back to the beginning. We're talking about him as a kid on a beach in Tel Aviv, where a simple game would end up shaping his entire artistic vision. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, so picture this. Ullman, as a young boy, just digging holes in the sand. Creating these little secret spaces. They were there one moment, and then the tide would come in, and they'd be gone. He was literally creating a presence by digging out an absence. And that super simple act, it just stuck with him for his whole life. So fast forward years later, he's faced with his monumental task, creating a memorial for the infamous Nazi book burning in Berlin. And that memory of the beach comes rushing back, right? How do you commemorate something so brutally erased? Well, you don't build something on top of the space. No, you reveal the void, the emptiness within it. And this right here, this quote, gets to the absolute heart of Ullman's work. Memory, for Ullman, was not an object, but a void, to be felt and filled with one's own reflection. So a monument for him isn't something you just, look at from a distance. It's an empty space that you, the person standing there, have to confront. You have to fill it with your own thoughts, your own emotions.
Now, you might be asking, why this focus on absence? Why emptiness? To understand why that became so central to his work, we've got to look at his own story. And it's a story that's really rooted in displacement and, you could say, the search for solid ground.
So check this out. In 1933, as Nazism was on the rise, Ullman's parents, who were German Jews, had to flee Germany. They found refuge in what was then Palestine, and 6 years later, he was born there, into a new world. Yeah, but a world that was profoundly shaped by everything that was lost. You can see how this personal history of exile is just woven into every single piece he creates.
And it wasn't just his family history. His environment was a huge influence too. I mean, he grew up in Tel Aviv, a city literally built on sand. For him, the earth itself became more than just dirt. It was a refuge, it was a foundation, and it was a silent witness to history. It became one of his most important artistic materials.
Okay, so how does an artist actually sculpt with emptiness? It sounds kind of out there, right? Let's break down how Ullman actually puts this incredibly powerful philosophy into practice. So Ullman's method basically turns sculpture inside out. Think about it. His main tool isn't clay or stone. It's the negative space, the empty space itself. He actively uses absence as a material to make us feel the weight of what's missing. It's a total game changer.
And really, the best way to get this is to see it in action. So let's dive into 3 of his key works that show exactly how Ullman sculpts what isn't there.
We're going to start with his most famous and maybe his most haunting work. It's called The Library, and it's located in the exact square in Berlin where the Nazis burned thousands upon thousands of books back in 1933. So when you go to Bebelplatz, you're not going to see some big towering statue. Instead, you'll see a simple plate of glass on the ground. But when you look down through it, wow, you see this, an underground room completely lined with empty white bookshelves. There's enough space for the 20,000 books that were destroyed that night. It's not a sculpture of a book, it's a sculpture of the absence of all those books. It's just a stunning gut punch of a symbol for a cultural void. Ullman uses these same ideas to move from, a huge public, historical loss to something deeply personal. Over at Mount Herzl, Israel's national cemetery, he created another incredibly profound memorial. This piece was made for a soldier whose body was never found. So, what do? How do you create a grave for someone who can't be buried? Well, Ullman dug a symbolic grave, just an empty pit in the earth. The void itself becomes the focus. And this is just a brilliant illustration of his method, right?
He doesn't try to replace what's lost. Instead, he creates a dedicated physical space for that absence, turning it into a site for memory and for mourning.
Okay, so his third key work explores this exact same theme of absence, but this time he uses a completely different material, light. In his Letters of Light series, Ullman projects Hebrew letters that seem to just materialize out of the darkness. It's like light and shadow are playing this delicate game. The letters, which are symbols of culture, language, and memory, they emerge from the void. Light becomes a form of presence, sure, but its very existence depends on the darkness, on the absence that surrounds it. It's a really beautiful concept.
So, as you can imagine, the impact of this totally unique and powerful vision has been huge. Ullman's whole approach of sculpting absence has really redefined what a monument can even be in our modern world.
And this impact has definitely been recognized. In 2009, he was awarded the Israel Prize for Sculpture. That's his country's absolute highest honor, and it really cemented his place as one of the most important figures in contemporary art.
At the end of the day, Micha Ullman's genius is his profound understanding of how memory works. He teaches us that sometimes the most powerful way to remember isn't to build something up, but to create a space for what's absent, to force us to confront the silence, and in that silence, to truly begin to reflect.
And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. His work honors these huge historical voids, but what about the voids in our own world, in our own communities, our histories, or even our own lives? What empty spaces might deserve a moment of quiet contemplation from us?